Good evening, and welcome to tonight's next episode of FieroCast. We'll be talking about the two rare cars in the Pontiac Fiero family. That is the Mera and the Zimmer Quicksilver. So join me tonight as we talk about these two cars. I am your host, Mike Royer, and you're listening to the newest episode of FieroCast, the only podcast dedicated to the Pontiac Fiero. All right, so one of the more unusual Fieros ever created did its best to conceal its Pontiac roots. Before most of the other Fiero rebodies existed, there was a car that most would be hard-pressed to identify as a Fiero. Despite it being based on the Fiero space frame and drivetrain, the car was the Zimmer Quicksilver and was the result of some creative thinking on part of Paul Zimmer. So let's give some background on Paul Zimmer. Paul Zimmer was an entrepreneur who started the Zimmer Manufacturing Company in the 1950s, producing the manufactured housing. Manufactured housing is a concept still used today where portions of all of the residents are manufactured in the factory, transported to the building site, and then placed on a foundation of concrete slab. The Zimmer houses were reported to be some of the highest quality and most expensive manufactured homes on the market. The manufactured housing industry took off by the 1980s, and Zimmer Manufacturing had 14 factories throughout the United States, with sales exceeding $325 million annually. During the 1970s, Paul Zimmer extended his interest into the related industries, including motorhomes, recreational vehicles, luxury yachts, and van conversions. These endeavors were probably natural, since Mr. Zimmer grew up in Detroit as a son of a boat and auto parts manufacturer, and each product that Zimmer brought to market was known for being the highest quality. And in 1978, Paul Zimmer saw an Excalibur automobile. He purchased the car, and although he realized that the quality of the Excalibur he purchased left much to be desired, he was smitten with the idea of a new classic automobile. He decided that he could design and manufacture a better neoclassic automobile and founded the Zimmer Motorcar Division of Zimmer Manufacturing in Pompano Beach, Florida. The first Zimmer automobile was the Golden Spirit, produced in 1980. The Zimmer Motorcar Club's history of events states that the Golden Spirit quickly set the highest standard for these types of cars, like everything else that Paul Zimmer had set out to do. But in contrast, a report in the October 3rd, 1988 Forbes reported that the Golden Spirit was an automobile of poor quality with bodies that cracked and wheels that fell off. Despite the quality problems the Zimmer may have had, the Golden Spirit was very successful nonetheless. The company usually had back orders on the cars. Annual sales exceeded 10 million as the Zimmer Motorcar Division expanded the line to include a two-door sport coupe, a convertible, and a four-door sedan. The two-door coupe resembled an Excalibur with styling details taken from the Duesenberg and the Autobahn automobiles of the 1930s, and was built off the Ford Mustang Fox platform with Mustang running gears. The convertible was a topless version of the coupe. The sedan and the convertible sedan were also based on the Mustang. The average of building off an estimated platform was that the cash worthlessness, door filament, weather sealing, and drivetrain had already been fully engineered and tested. So, over 1,400 Golden Spirit vehicles were produced between 1980 and 1988. But in 1985, a second car, the Quicksilver, was added to the Zimmer line. What is the Quicksilver? Well, the The Quicksilver was more of a modern car. It has a personal luxury coupe that did not really resemble other cars from the past. A Zimmer press release described the car as a modern coach-built version of the two-seat Thunderbird. The Quicksilver is designed to be contemporary, yet elegant and decently American character. Ex-General Motors designer Don Johnson styled the car and is quoted as saying that this car is about style. The car is not about how drag coefficients, tire burning, acceleration, or sports car handling. He designed the car to make a visual statement in the excitement, the way cars used to be back in the days. And when we waited for that showroom to unveil new models, Zimmer envisioned the Quicksilver to compete with the likes of the Cadillac Altais, the Chrysler Maserati TC, and then yet to be released the Buick Reatta. But the Quicksilver was built off then one-year-old Pontiac Fiero platform. But unlike most other Fiero conversions that followed, this car included a 16-inch extension of the space frame ahead of the base of the windshield and 13-inch extension behind the rear wheels. The length of the Quicksilver is further exaggerated over that of the Fiero by extensive overhangs at the front and back of the car. The extravagant chrome bumpers on either side, and those bumpers, incidentally, were fabricated in Taiwan and chrome plated back in Florida. The extension didn't add any room to the interior, instead creating an oddly shaped carpeted storage area under the hood and larger trunk. As in the Fiero, the spare tire resides under the hood beneath the carpeted cover. The 16-inch extension required the lengthening of the coolant pipes and the AC lines as well as the steering column. Little else was done to modify the underlying Fiero mechanical systems and parts. In back, the car had two deck lids. The deck lid closet to the rear window opened to provide access to the engine. It was essentially a shortened version of the stock deck lid and included two louver vents behind the driver and passenger, but a second deck lid opened to reveal another carpeted trunk that was similar to that of the stock Fiero trunk, but longer due to the added 13 inches. So the second deck lid was held open with the use of two struts that had been common on the hatches of SUVs and minivans. So this combination of the rear extension and the two deck lids made it very difficult for somebody to service the engine because the owner or mechanic had to reach over the second deck lid to reach the engine, which made it a little bit more difficult given the extended overhang of the rear. This practice also required some care as to not damage the paint on the second deck lid. So as the styling of the car is polarizing, people either love it or hate it. It appears that the Quicksilver only used the rear window, windshield, and modified deck lid from the Fiero. All other body panels were required unique to the Zimmer, but the design provided the long new look of a personal luxury car with long doors, a long hood, and a short deck. But that had been very popular in the 60s and 70s. From a full side view, the car's proportions looked just slightly too long and the greenhouse slightly too small. But the distance between the wheels is far too extravagant when seen from the front and back three-quarters view. Unlike the Fiero, which was a fairly dramatic sloping hood, the Quicksilver has a gently sloping hood to accommodate the long overhang. The hood contains a raised center section and tapers from the tailing edge of the hood to the leading edge to flow into the sloped grille with the dual openings. The grille, which is a separate piece but integrated into the front bumper, has a thick vertical central bar, and 2 openings are filled with multiple thin vertical bars. The chrome hood ornament, which consists of the styled Z, flaked by 2 vertical wings, resemble that of the Studebaker Golden Hawk logo, which sits atop the grille, which projects slightly forward from the front of the car. Now we get into the headlights. The headlights were concealed beneath the hood, as with the Fiero, but because of the extended overhang, the lights are set back fairly far on the hood. Turning signals were located behind the clear lenses in the front bumper, flanking the grille, which then the chrome bumper, which dominates the front of the car, extends into a massive L-shaped and returns that extended back to the front wheel well opening. Large rectangular cornering side marker lights are inset a little bit to the bodywork, and then above these chrome, they're also set above the chrome bumpers. The lights contain an amber portion on the front of the lights, and the remainder of the lights is clear. You start looking at the sides of the car. They're pretty free of ornamentation or creases except for the Quicksilver name in the chrome script, letters at each fender between the door and the front wheel well opening. Unlike the Fiero, which has the rub strip molding across the car's sides, the Quicksilver fenders and door panels are very smooth, curved surfaces, free of interruptions, and the exterior mirrors are still the stock Fiero mirrors painted the same color as the body. The door handles appear to be stock chrome that can be found on numerous GM products in the 80s. The thick chrome piece front extends across the rockers between the slightly flared wheel openings. Also, absent from the car's driver's side is the air intake vent found on Fieros. So there is no visible means of providing air to the engine on the exterior body of the car because air was ducted from beneath the car to the engine. So before we continue on, we're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our FieroCast sponsors. We know how hard it is to find Fiero parts. We also know that as years go by, finding parts isn't going to get any easier. The big box stores will never make new Fiero parts because our community is just too small. This is why we need to support the companies that support us. For nearly 30 years, the Fiero store has sponsored our club events, provided free technical support, and produced well over 150 exclusive parts that no big box store would even consider. So, next time you need Fiero parts, head over to thefierostore.com and browse through thousands of products that are specifically designed for your Fiero. That's fierostore.com, the world's largest source of Fiero parts. All right, welcome back. So in this episode, we are talking about the Zimmer Quicksilver. We're going to continue we're going to talk about the upper body panels, and the upper body appears to have the same window opening as the Fiero. However, although the Quicksilver retains the Fiero sail panels, there is only a small glossy black panel containing the Zimmer emblem. Adjacent to the trailing edge of the window glass, a thin chrome strip extends around the perimeter of the window, and the black panel. Now, the remainder of the sail panel is a solid surface flowing from the roof into the quarter panel. The interior sides of the sail panels are finished in a matte black, just like the Fieros. Oddly, however, the quality of these interior sail panels do not match the quality of the rest of the exterior due to the exposed fasteners that are visible along the trailing edge of the interior surface of the sail panels. The extreme chrome returns found on the front corners of the car are repeated on the rear. Except for the rear, the bumper is not the thick chrome piece of jewelry found on the front, but a massive piece of steel that looked more appropriate in the 1970s Buick. The rectangular side markers are repeated here again, except the front half of each marker is clear, and in the back half is red. The massive bumper is also as tall as the body, which was curved recess along the top edge of the center of the car. And the deck lid mimics the hood somewhat in that contains a raised center section that tapers towards the back of the car, which again is very close to the 1977 Pontiac Grand Prix deck lid. This raised taper section terminates in the curved sloping surface that fits into the curved section of the bumper. Inset in either side of the bumper are large taillights with thin red reflectors inset between the taillights. As if a huge chrome appendage wasn't enough, dual chrome tailpipes peek out beneath the bumper. The chrome at the ends of the car, and particularly at the rear, tend to provide an overweight appearance to what is otherwise a vast automobile. The rear car seems unnecessarily cluttered with multiple complex curves, intermixed with rectangular shapes and numerous cut lines. Some of the gaps between the panels, and especially between the body and the bumpers, are excessively wide. But in the Zimmer literature, it states that the fiberglass bodies were covered with six coats of hand-rubbed paint offered in a choice of red, black, silver, or white. Then in 1987, the limited production Quicksilver XTZ was offered. The XTZ was designed with the West Coast automobile enthusiast in mind. It featured 6 coats of special ecstasy white base coat, clear coat painted with a monochromatic California look, which included matching Riken aluminum wheels. Now these are 14-inch in front and 15-inch in the rear, with Goodyear Eagle GT performance tires and with a special handling package. There is no mention of what the special handling package entailed, but it seems that to offer a limited production model when Zimmer was only producing approximately 50 cars per year. So, now that we've got that exterior taken care of, let's move into the interior. And the dash had a new layout and was designed and fabricated especially for the Quicksilver, but resembles rectangular dash designs by GM in this period. It is exactly a separate dash piece placed over an existing Fiero dash after removing the instrument pod and leaving the portion of the Fiero dash with the stereo and speakers and vents beneath the windshield exposed. So while the Quicksilver featured interior colors of red, pewter, and cameo, or ivory, the top portion of the dash was the standard gray or brown found in Fieros. But the XTZ offered ecstasy white leather and carpeting with a contracting black headliner. The new dash design incorporated the stock Fiero gauge cluster and the center stack controls, except the English walnut. The wood overlays have been installed on the vertical surfaces. A tall glove box, which is located in front of the passenger. Various steering wheel designs were utilized, possibly representing a running change in production, but most common is the 3-spoke wheel found in Fieros, with the center of the wheel where the horn button resides replaced with a new center cap or black vinyl cap that extends the full length of the wheel spokes. Some cars were equipped with 4-spoke wood wheels, but the steering column is standard tilt wheel with the cruise control located in the turn signal stalk that GM had used for decades. The black steering column, along with the black and gray standard Fiero switchgear, looks out of place in the otherwise color-coordinated interior. The other part that stands out is the tall center console, which remains included the glove box between the seats. Which are now leather-covered buckets, which with side bolsters and adjustment headrests. The Quicksilver name is embroidered on each headrest, and the door panels have been modified, but still use the door handles, door locks, modules from the Fiero, including the Fiero Pegasus, which is embossed on the black pieces, which stands out as being one of the few black pieces on the interior of the car. The center console design was adopted from the Fiero as well, and includes some of the same orientation between shifter, Mera controls, ashtrays, but the surrounding plastic console cover has been redesigned without the offset where the Fiero cigarette lighter resides. Available photos show that the Fiero's automatic transmission shifter covered to match the car's interior. All of the other interior panels appear to have been taken directly from the Fiero interior, but have been covered with leather. The Zimmer literature states that virtually all interior surfaces, including the door panels, dash, console, A-pillars, are all covered with a hand-fitted Italian glove leather. Zimmer believed that parts you could see should be detailed and absolutely grand. Car and Driver stated that the stitching on the leather had just enough imperfections for you to realize that the stitching was performed by hand and not by a machine. The drivetrain and suspension from the windshield back were stock Fiero components that were left unmodified except presumably for the XTZ, which its special handling package. The power-assisted rack and pinion steering was cribbed from the Mercury, a short-lived Ford of Europe product that was apparently a good car but poorly received here in the U.S. A stiff anti-roll bar was added to the stock Fiero front suspension, and the Quicksilver used disc brakes at all four corners. It is likely that the Fiero disc brakes were kept because the Zimmer retained the Fiero's parking brake, which is the black handle and with the orange release button. So when the Quicksilver specs were compared to the Fiero, the obvious variations exist with the length, the width, the height, and the Zimmer is slightly increased, and the Zimmer weighs more. There seems to be some discrepancies in the published numbers for the weight because of the two different curb weights that are published for the Zimmer. The Zimmer weighs approximately 444 pounds more than the 1988 Fiero formula, which is probably accurate considering the additional 29 inches of frame. The additional acres of fiberglass bodywork, which is heavier than the Fiero body panels, the steel bumpers, power steering equipment, full-size spare tire, and carpeting in the underhood storage area, the Zimmer is equipped with a 3-speed automatic transmission, and according to the Zimmer information, it has a top speed that is 2 miles less than the Fiero formula. Car and Driver instrumented a Quicksilver and recorded 60 miles per hour from a stop in 9.7 seconds, which is 1.7 seconds slower. That's slower than the Fiero formula. Zimmer's own established published figures list that the 0 to 60 time at 8.3, putting it only 0.4 seconds behind the Fiero formula. That's probably wishful thinking, provided no other speed handling or braking numbers, but Car and Driver took the car to the top speed of 112 and ran the quarter mile in 17.3 seconds at 79 miles per hour. In April of 1988, the magazine took a Fiero formula down the same quarter mile in 16.1 seconds at 82 miles per hour with a top speed of 123. And the published EPA figures of 18 miles per gallon city and 25 miles per gallon on the highway seems correct, as is slightly less than the published fuel economy of the Fiero equipped with the V6. So these numbers were confirmed by Car and Driver's own tests. And as Patrick Bedard had in his writing in April of 1987's issue of Car and Driver, he stated that the Quicksilver moves easily with its 2.8-liter V6 and automatic transmission, but the Fiero drivers could notice the extra weight immediately, and about 444 pounds is added in the conversion. It takes away from whatever sporty Fiero feel there might have been and replaces it with a very heavy curve in the moves. The Pirelli P77 tires feel soft and relaxed, and they corner with large drift angles and do not encourage sporty movements at the wheel. They are a touring car for a touring. They were a touring tire for a touring car. So, in a normal touring, only two flaws were noticeable. The Quicksilver's tires contact the bodywork when the suspension is fully compressed. More important, the steering has no straight ahead preferences. You may have to keep after it all the time to stay in your lane on the freeway. Although the failing might be traceable to the power steering transplant, they're inclined to think that the Quicksilver has inherited its wayward nature from the Fiero, which has had its steering problems. So we're going to take a quick little break, again, to hear from one of our sponsors for FieroCast. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Have you asked yourself, what is the Midwest Fiero Clubs? Well, the Midwest Fiero Clubs, which is also a region of the AACA, is a dedicated group of enthusiasts whose passion is to promote and preserve the Pontiac Fiero and the Fiero community. The Midwest Fiero Clubs consists of members from existing Fiero clubs across the U.S. The Midwest Fiero Club's intent is to support member clubs and promote the Fiero-related events that they offer. The intent is to enable enthusiasts to discover events in their areas other than their own, and to warrant participation. This has created a tighter-knit Fiero community of the owners and created some great regional shows that may not have otherwise happened. So, how do I find out about them? You can visit the website at midwestfieroclubs.aaca.com or just Facebook them at Midwest Fiero Clubs AACA and like them. All right, welcome back. And so now we're still talking about the comparisons, and the car simply doesn't feel like a Fiero. The engine gives a lusty roar at full throttle, but the extra weight slows acceleration to a leisurely rate. It also claims the ride motions to a mere luxurious frequency. The long hood rides the falls with momentum, but instead of the Fiero chop, cornering is extremely neutral, with none of the Fiero's lift throttle harmonics, and something else too, the toys rattling in the wood box. Clunkiness of the Fiero is gone, replaced by a more solid feel. This may be a benefit to the hand-laid body panels, which are much more heavier and stiffer than the Fiero skin. If you stay away from the edges of the performance envelope, the Quicksilver has no problems, right? All right. When new, the Zimmer Quicksilver was priced somewhere between $51,000 and $56,000. The manufacturer's suggested retail price was $51,950. If sales of the Golden Spirit were good, sales of the Quicksilver fell short of expectations. And in June of 1987, in the issue of Automotive News, quoted one Zimmer dealer who sold only one Quicksilver in 12 months for less than $40,000. This was a hefty sum of money considering that the new Porsches, the 928 4 cost $58,900 and a Ferrari Testarossa cost $67,000. So, however, buyers of the Quicksilver were getting a partially hand-built car that required an estimated 690 hours of labor to produce. Zimmer did not deny the fact that beneath the Quicksilver skin was a Pontiac Fiero, but they didn't advertise it either. Zimmer stated that the new Fiero in black, so the underwear will be the right color? The benefits of starting with the Fiero was the quickness of the production changes and being able to offer a warranty and service to match that of General Motors. The current Zimmer Motor Car Company's website lists values for the 1985 and 1986 cars of $18,000 to $24,000, and in 1987 and 88 cars of around $20,000 to $26,000. So a Quicksilver sold at the festival auction in Florida for around $8,100 in February of 2005. In the last few years, these cars have sold for around $8,000 to $15,000. The depreciation of 71 to 86%, which is better than the depreciation on a stock low mileage Fiero. Now again, this is back in 2005, 2006. So according to the Zimmer Quicksilver sales brochure, no options were offered because everything is included with the car. Apparently started with fully optioned Fieros, and everything included a 2.8 liter fuel injected V6 automatic transmission, air conditioning, tilt steering wheel, cruise control, dual electronic mirrors, power disc brakes with aluminum calipers, power steering, power windows, power door locks, wood dash and console, leather wrapped steering wheel, light group, tinted windows, Michelin white wall tires on Dayton 14-inch chrome-plated wheels with polished stainless steel spokes, a premium sound system with power antenna, and a tailored car cover. Many more recent photos show that these cars without the white walls and various aftermarket wheels. But 1987, Zimmer Manufacturing, the parent company, had experienced some economic problems. In between 84 and 87, the company lost more than $14 million. And around that time, the Excalibur and Clannett, two companies that also manufactured neoclassics, were just emerging from Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So, by the end of 1987, the $325 million Zimmer Manufacturing filed for bankruptcy. As the parent company failed, it took the other profitable divisions down with it, including the $10 million a year Zimmer Motor Car division, but not before approximately 170 Quicksilvers were built at a rate of approximately one per day. Two convertible Quicksilvers bodies have been fabricated but never finished, and a new Zimmer Motor Car Company exists today. However, the Quicksilver is no longer offered. So, it's not really that bad. And in case you took exception to some of the Patrick Bernard's comments regarding the Fiero as they appeared in that April 1987 Car and Driver article, rest assured that most publications, including Car and Driver, didn't have many bad words for the Fiero when they were writing about the Fiero. And in September of 1983, issue of Motor Trend stated that, as you might expect, the combination of a bar at the front and none in the rear results in understeer, the safe driving mode. That's not to say that the car is a plower. However, it's actually quite neutral, right up to the limit where the dreaded understeer takes over. And the amount of steering feel and road input is noteworthy. The tactical sensations from the wheel feel more of like a Formula Ford, which is surprisingly and laudable. But in 1984, Motor Trend also reported that twisty roads are the Fiero's forte. Driven close to but definitely below its cornering limits, it is predictable and vice-free. Pushed to and beyond its limits, it is terminal, inoperable understeer. But that should not be a concern to the competition vehicles, a Mera, the ultimate in cornering power. The GT's handling dynamics are nearly flawless. By production road car standards, the steering effort is lineal and proportional to the front slip angles, all the way up to the full steering lock. And in April of '88, Car and Driver's Rich Seppos wrote, "Not much phase this car. It is a pleasure to hurry it down a 2-lane." And in this article, that was a 3-way comparison with the Toyota MR2 and the Honda CRX. So he wrote, "The clock reveals that it knows how to sprint too. It was the quickest car in the test from 0 to 60 in 7.9 seconds and through the quarter mile at 16.1 seconds at 82 miles per hour. And it had the highest top speed at 123 miles per hour, which also posted the best finishes on the skid pad through the Solemn and the road course." So despite somewhat acidic comments in comparison to the Quicksilver, most auto enthusiast magazines at the time were lauding over the Fiero as a great little car with potential to be more. So I want to take this time to thank Christopher Sass in writing this article. There's a lot of information in here, and it is a very good article. If you want a copy of it, it will be on FieroFocus.com as well. The references that were used are the Kit Car Illustrated in February of 2000, Kit Car May of 2002, Motor Trends 1983, Motor Trends September-November of 1984, Motor Trends January of 87, Car and Driver April of 1988, Car and Driver April of 1987, and Automotive News August 11th of 1986, Automotive News of 1987, and various undated Zimmer Motor Car Company literature and press releases. So again, thank you to Christopher Sass for writing this podcast for us. Again, this article will be up on the website as well. So before we conclude this FieroCast on the Zimmer, I want to include a excerpt from Wayne Redline Zane. He was a part of the editorial staff of Fiero Focus many years ago, and he was also Dr. Detail. And he had the privilege of talking to Art Zimmer. And I like to include this in this podcast because I do believe it is relevant. So now, introducing Art Zimmer. "It was a privilege for me on the behalf of N.I.F. to have contacted and spoke with Art Zimmer, the current owner of the Art Zimmer Motor Car Company. Now, since his name is Zimmer, you may think that he was associated with these cars from the get-go. But Art, however, is not related to Paul Zimmer, the creator and founder of the Zimmer Motor Car Company. Based upon several phone conversations with Art, it became apparent that he is a self-made man of many interests. He started life as a farm boy in Hamilton, New York, and made his fortune in Syracuse, New York, from accumulating a collection of over 20 newspaper and magazine publishing enterprises. In addition to having newspaper ink in his blood, he also is a serious car aficionado. And in 1995, Art saw a magnificent car with his name on it in a front of the Sam Dell Dodge dealership in Syracuse. He purchased one in Palm Springs a year later. From there, he went on to establish the Zimmer Car Club for Zimmer owners in September of 1986 and went full bore. Starting from scratch, the Art Zimmer Motor Car Company in 1987, after 18 months of intensive legal work, research, and development, in November of 1998, he rolled off of his new Cambridge, Massachusetts assembly line the first brand new 1998 Zimmer Golden Spirit motor car. Unprecedented. In addition to the above major accomplishment, Art also found time to write and produce one of the longest running stage productions, Cruising Through the 50s, and then updated Cruising Through the 50s and 60s. Art told me that the productions have been going stronger for in excess of 20 years and continue to please theatergoers nightly. So I asked Art how he got into many different things. And in response, he told me that he has an open mind, that he never plans to do something, but when an opportunity presents itself and is fun, he pursues it. Art certainly has and can truly be a Renaissance man. On a personal note, he is one of the nicest people I had the pleasure to talk to on behalf of N.I.F E, and is a wonderful human being. Without Art's help, I wouldn't have been able to share with our membership the wonderful pictures of the Zimmer Quicksilver incomplete with Christopher Sass's feature article. So Art, thank you. And it was a pleasure discussing the Zimmer and your projects with you. Wayne Redline Zane, editorial staff. So they do have a following, even though the Zimmer is odd. It is still a popular car. So if you have one, keep it, show it, take it to shows. If you've never seen one, you gotta go see one. It is odd. I'll leave it at that. So, moving from elegant, contemporary, extended, we're going to move into the much sportier look of a Fiero rebody, the Mera. And with that, Mark Soldner, who has studied these cars and just loves the look of them, is going to jump in and talk with us about them. So I hope you will continue listening to this FieroCast. We're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors. Again, thank you very much to Christopher Sass and Wayne Redline Zane for providing the content for this FieroCast. It's a little change up, but again, thank you guys for providing this information on the Zimmer Quicksilver. And if you're looking for more information on the Zimmer Quicksilver, we will have more information up on our website. So let's take a break. Let's hear from our sponsor, and we'll get back to you with Mark Soldner and the Mera. Are you looking for that perfect gift for that Fiero hobbyist? Check out version 4.0, the Enthusiast Guide to the Pontiac Fiero. What is the Enthusiast Guide? Well, in this version 4.0 of the EG is the most in-depth, comprehensive, documented information on the stock 1984 to 1988 Fiero, with over 50 pages in an 8.5 by 11 spiral bound book. This is the most up-to-date on Fiero facts, statistics, numbers built, the colors, VIN decoder, and specifications with over 150 full color images. There is no more books or no other information out there that has this much in there for the Fiero hobbyists. There's more information included in the guide than any other publication on the market. The new version includes 18 new bullet point topics throughout the guide, 2 new sections added covering the notchback and fastback luggage carriers, and a full listing of over 75 factory label descriptions and locations, including over 70 new images added. So, this has been in publication since 2005, and it's now 2021 with just about 2,000 copies purchased to date. You can order it online at FieroFocus.com. Just head over to the store and click on the Fiero Enthusiast Guide, or you can go to the Fiero Enthusiast Guide page at FieroFocus.com, print out the order form, and send it in to Mark Soldner, and he'll get your copy out to you. Order yours today for only $15 plus shipping. That's FieroFocus.com, Enthusiast Guide. Click on it. Get yours today. So, but we've got Mark here to help us discuss the Mera and why Pontiac decided to go this route, how long they were around, average cost, and what happened to them. So, welcome, Mark. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks.
So, give us a little history of the Mera. It started back in 1987 was the first time that it popped up. Was it advertised as a Fiero, or was it advertised as a Ferrari? And who came up with the design?
First of all, Bob Bracey, a gentleman that owned Corporate Concepts, that he got into the company or started the company to do things of this nature. He was intrigued with the new Fiero and had followed it for a number of years in the beginning, and then really wanted to do something to set it apart, and knew that he had a really nice base for it. They're right around the same size. And it took him about 2 years of clay work and design work for the Mera to come about. So that's why it didn't start until 87. And he didn't want it exactly like the 308, so he, wouldn't get in trouble. And there are some big differences. And anyone that owns a Ferrari would know that, it's not a Ferrari, but I think it was more of an homage to it than a copy,
Did he incorporate the Ferrari badges?
No, that's the thing. It was all badged a Mera. I mean, everything. The front had the Mera logo. The back had Mera letters. On the steering wheel, there was a Mera logo. In the little area on the doors where the locks are, which usually have the little Fiero emblem, there was a Mera emblem. And I believe that they had Mera on the plenum, on the engine and back.
And that was still the 6-cylinder that Pontiac produced, correct?
Yeah, the 2.8. Yeah, that's all that came with it. It was based in 87. It was based on the GT, and in 88, it was based. The frame was the Formula. So on a side note, the more expensive and more rare Meras out there now are the ones that are still badged Mera, because a lot of people put Ferrari badges on it. I'm not sure why. I mean, that was their preference and everything. I would never do that. I mean, because I think that being that in the total run there was only 247 made, why would you want it to look like something else?
What was the base MSRP on them? I mean, were they fairly inexpensive, or were they considered like that high end top fully loaded Fiero?
Yeah, you would go in and you would buy the car and then choose your options on it. And people know pretty much what the basic GT costs and what the options. And this was about almost 10 grand more. They ranged anywhere from 24 to 28,000 with the Mera kit checked off, which was right around the same price, maybe a little bit less than a Corvette at the time. But, I mean, and there'll be some arguments and stuff. And the 80s Corvettes weren't the greatest thing in the world, as far as I was concerned. And, I mean, the looks, I think, were kind of waning at that time. And that's a whole other story. But so I think that, you could have something that looks really expensive for a little bit less than a Corvette.
Do you think that price of that, we'll say 25,000 is worth it? Basically, you've got a Fiero GT body. You've got all the options that a GT, fully loaded GT, could have. $10,000 more just to have a Ferrari style body?
Well, considering that an actual Ferrari would probably cost twice that much, and that this is American, made with American internals, and when it needed service, you would take it to the Pontiac dealer instead of the Ferrari dealer, and it wouldn't cost you 20 grand every 6 months. and you got to think that Magnum PI was very popular at this time. So I think that was part of it. And it's like a conversion ban. I mean, why drive around and it's going to cost you, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 more to have, the conversion vans of the 80s, which I don't know if you've ever seen those, or would you want just a regular, family van? I think that's what it was. It was for a select few, and I don't think they wanted to put it in a price range where everyone could buy one. Because you would order it and they would have to make it, for you.
That's what I was going to ask was, I walk into a Pontiac dealer and, I'm looking at the GT and they say, hey, in 87 here, we have a new style Fiero. Looks like a Ferrari. And let's sit down and talk about it. Okay. Talk about it and say, all right, I'm ready to sign. So, do you then get that the base model GT, does it go from the factory direct to corporate concepts, or do you order it as a GT, dealer takes it, then sends it out?
I believe it's the latter, where the dealership would get a hold of it and then send it to corporate concepts, because corporate concepts was based in Michigan. Now, I'm trying to think. I don't know for sure that if you say bought it in, Nevada, if they would bring it all the way out to Nevada and then bring it back to corporate concepts. It might have been that, okay, here's the GT, we can ride, we can drive in a GT, and this is what how it's going to handle and everything. It's just going to have a different body style. That may be what happened. I don't know for sure on that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to find out, because here I'm thinking you basically have a naked Fiero rolling off the line, goes on a truck, goes over to corporate concepts for the body panels, or out of like the 240 that you said, corporate concepts has all those body panels that either they trashed or resold back to Pontiac, or they just used them as pieces that you could purchase if you needed a front fender, back deck lid. It'd be interesting to get a little bit more info on that corporate concepts, on how that worked with Pontiac.
Yeah, I know that. I don't know what they did with the panels, but I know that when they were delivered as Fieros to corporate concepts, because I have pictures showing them taking the panels off of Fieros. Now, what they did with those panels afterwards, that is a good question. I don't know. But yeah, that'd be interesting to find out. And I think a lot of times, if you went into a Pontiac dealer, I think you kind of knew that you wanted a Mera. I don't think it was one of those things, oh, here's the GT, but we do have this. I'm sure, that was part of a salesmanship, but I think most of the people that wanted a Mera knew what they wanted when they walked in the door. There's a
So
lot of advertising prior to this.
so it was joined together prior to '87 that GM or the Pontiac division of GM and corporate concepts were going to do this. So what would have been interesting to see, and again, maybe somebody has photos of it, that early concept of what the the idea of maybe back in 85, 86, what they looked like before they got into the actual final version of the Mera. Because if you're looking at 87 to 88, you had a different style of mirror, and the front ends were a little different. They included more of the turn signal lamps into the actual front black bumper, and they kind of tweaked it down to where looking at it almost looks like a early concept of a 84, 85 coupe.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, I'm not. I I don't know how they were looking at it. There's one letter I had that talks about the demise, from Ferrari coming after them, and they didn't stop making Ferraris because the Fiero was going down. They had sued him a little bit earlier before the announcement was made, and they were allowed to continue making them that were ordered, but not taking any more orders for them. So if Fiero would have gone to 89, 90 without being sued by Ferrari, would there be 89 and 90 Meras?
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know. And like you said, I would love to see the pictures if they're out there. And hopefully they are, of like the clay work and the design work that they did on it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why were they gonna, what were they gonna change to make it different so there wasn't an infraction on Ferrari?
Yeah. Well, it looks like in '87 when they came out, they kept a lot of the Fiero stuff attached to it. The interior, they
Oh
used
yeah,
the GT diamond spoke wheels painted. The change was painted to match the actual body color.
right.
And
Only in '87 though.
yeah, yeah. And they offered white, black, red, silver, gray, and yellow, which
Mm-hmm.
was basically a lot of the same colors that on the earlier concepts, and then in the starting up with the newer colors that they had in '87 too, with the bright silver metallic,
Mm-hmm.
and they kept the black and the white, but they added the yellow and the gray.
Yeah. I'm particular on the yellow ones. I just think that those are unique. I mean, the red ones are really nice and they're probably the most popular, but I don't know. I like the uniqueness of the other colors. Just, something about seeing a yellow 308. It's just personal preference. But yeah, I mean, as you were saying too, yeah, if you open up the doors, the trunk, and the front hood, it's all Fiero. I mean, they didn't change anything on the interior. All they did was change the body panels. And that's kind of cool because Fiero, I mean, you either like them or you don't, and
Hmm.
if you like them, you love them.
It's interesting to kind of look at the numbers. When you look at the full lineup in '87, they produced 46,500 Fieros. And out of that, only 88 were Meras. So under 2%.
Yeah, it's a 0.18% production, and of all of production, out of the 370,000, the 87 Miracle Coupes are 0.02% because it wasn't a assembly line. You had to order it and have it shipped, so it was personally made for you,
Hmm.
which I think is another thing that adds to the uniqueness of it. And I've got one statistic here that says that of the 247 that were made, only 150 stayed in the U.S. The rest went to Japan and Europe. So now that drops your uniqueness of what you have even farther down. It's not one of
Right.
240. It's and then how many were crashed? How many were burnt? Rodney Dickman has been trying to keep a Mera registry, and some other people have been trying to do a registry, but unless you're into car clubs or looking into what you have, you won't see these registries out there. I just talked to a gentleman the other day, and I said, you should go online and go to this. They have a registry. And he goes, I didn't know anything about that. He goes, I will. I said, yeah, put your name on that, because they're trying to figure out where all these cars are.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's just kind of very unique.
I'm just kind of looking through some of the back end data, and it's interesting because in '88, the T-tops with the Fiero line, they officially offered the T-tops as a factory authorized option.
Right.
But in '87, they weren't available. But looking at some of the old pictures of the Mera, was the roof painted black, or did it come with T-tops? It's hard to tell.
They came with T-tops. There's a couple of people out there that painted them, but from the factory or from corporate concepts, it was either just like the Fiero, either a full panel, the sunroof, or T-tops. And I like the T-tops because the actual Ferrari was a Targa, and the T-tops, with the T-tops off, really gets that closest to what real Ferrari looks like.
So was that a standard then? If you got the Mera, you got the T-tops in '87? Because
if you ordered it with it, sure.
Okay. Because I'm looking through some of the old RPO codes, and I don't see that it was even an option for the Fiero itself. So it's almost like that was only geared towards that option of the Mera.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. I know of a number of '87 T-topped Meras, and that's a good question again as to, were those put in as a, because they could do T-tops. Not all Fiero T-tops are CBJs or CJs.
Right.
So was it that? Was there somebody that went, oh, you want T-tops with this? We'll do that too.
Yeah.
But corporate concepts would have to know about that in order to, well, no, they didn't change the roof per se. Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
They kept the roof the same. They just added that back part. So whatever the roof was on the Fiero is what, if you wanted T-tops, you would have to have, I guess they would have to have that set somewhere else. I don't know if dealerships offered T-tops if it wasn't an option. Like sometimes you get Z and all that other stuff. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah. Like I said, I was just looking through some of the RPO codes and just noticed that they weren't listed as an option in '87, but they were in '88. But some of the '87 Meras had T-tops, so maybe it was mixed in with the package, where you get maybe package A and package B, and package A had T-tops, package B didn't. Interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to know too when the design for the T-tops started coming in '88, like, because you could, you can always order the year before, like you could order '88 in like June or July of '87. So did they maybe start offering T-tops on '87s when the '88s were coming out?
Could be. That might be a question for Paul, or somebody who's even Fred, who can kind of maybe dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a great thread on Penix. Anyone knows Penix? It's called A Real Mera in Paradise, and it's 176 pages long, and if there's anything you want to know about mirrors, you go on that thread and ask them, and it's just about the Mera. Those guys are just amazing.
Do they mention anything? I know in '88 they switched from in the '87 GT body to the Formula.
Yes.
Maybe that's why that difference where the front end looks a little different because they based it off the Formula versus the GT.
It could be. Yeah. There's a slight difference in them. Well, it depends on the pictures too. I mean, sometimes there are people they would reverse the bumpers on them because it looked more like a Ferrari bumper. They would flip them over. So it depends on, if those are actual factory new mirrors or if they've had a conversion done to them.
Yeah.
Another conversion done to them.
The other interesting thing, and it kind of goes back to that letter that was sent from Ferrari that in '88, kind of when they started getting a little bit finer lines on the Mera, they threw on the Ferrari style, I'm gonna probably get it right, Chromatera rims.
Oh, Commodore wheels?
Yeah.
Yeah. They started, that was '88 only. Yeah, I think that I understand why they did that because not a lot of people liked the diamond spoke. I think they're kind of cool, matching the color of the car. I think that makes it more unique, and that kind of tells you that's an '87 Mera. But I like the Commodore wheels too because those, again, if you want to make it look like a Ferrari without badging it, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. And it looks like they had, going back to the numbers, I mean, they almost doubled their numbers in '88, and they only raised the price $49.
Yeah, I figured he was probably trying to cover what he had into the design work and the amount of time and everything into it. And I don't think he was there to, turn himself into a millionaire. I think he was there to keep producing this car and let it, if it's already gone from it. Because if you look at the GT Coupe for '88, you're at 14 grand. And then for, Mera, you're at 25.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're looking at another 9 grand. So he's just like, well, if I, raise the price another 2 or 3 grand, am I going to cut into how many people buy it?
Right.
So
The interesting thing too would have been, if the line would have continued into '89, '90, if he would have sold more, or if it would have come down based on the new style of the Fiero, if that ever advanced into that step.
true. I mean, look, he probably would have had to do if the basic frame of the car, once he took off all the panels, if that had changed, he would probably have to do changes in his body, how he attaches it and the shape of it and everything. Or would he have maybe gone into the Testarossa or into another style, another Ferrari style instead of this? Because it's I'm not an expert and I don't know everything about them, and these are all just great things that I've ever had someone to talk to that had a really insight on this. It would just be, to me, it'd just be like, greatest thing in the world to find all these questions because they're all good questions. As to, what would the future have brought? What would you have done? Because
and if the molds are even still around, I mean that would be
well. According to the article that I have, they had to do, what is it, a class 7, where you have to destroy all molds. That was part of the agreement with Ferrari. That you have to cease and desist and destroy all the molds. because they're saying that any Ferrari replicas out there now that are not Meras are made off of the Mera panels, because they none of that stuff out there is Mera stuff. I mean, if it's like if you see something advertised as an 85 or 86 Mera,
Mm-hmm.
it was Mera body panels that were copied, like fiberglass copied, or how many copy panels, and because they had to destroy them according
So the Fieros that out of the 240 plus mirrors that were produced, minus the badging, was there anything internally, like were the VINs noted as a mirror? Was there anything inside on the stickers that noted it as a mirror?
VINs, no. No, there wasn't a VIN number. There wasn't a VIN number that said, oh yeah, that's definitely a Mera. There were just different, just little nuances, like the way the Mera badging is a big thing. And, there's just, no, there's no really way to, the tail light area. It's not a Mera unless it has the backup lights, the vertical backup lights on either side of the license plate. The only Mera that does not have that is Mera 6001, which is the prototype, and that was made in late '86 to go around to, I think it was at the Detroit Car Show and a couple of other car shows to show you this is what's available for Fiero and Pontiac in the future. And that '86 did not have those backup lights, but all the others did. So if somebody says, well, this is a Mera, and you go back there and it doesn't have those, then it's not a Mera. That's that's one of the true things, and to tell. And then the tail lights, if you look on the tail lights like any other tail light, it'll say like Chevy or GM. It actually says Mera. It's actually like so they made the tail lamps.
Interesting.
But no, nothing in the VIN number. I can't, where you can walk up to and go, oh, this is, that's a true Mera. Well, what they did do though, let me bounce back on that. If you open up the trunk lid, that's another way to tell if it's a Mera. You open up the trunk lid, and on the bottom of the trunk lid, there's a postage card sticker laminated that states that it's Mera number, whatever the Mera number was, and if it was built in '87, it was 70. If it was the fifth one, it'd be 7005. And if it was an '88, it would be 80 whatever. So if you had the 150th one, it'd be 8150. And then it had the VIN, which was taken off the car, and then underneath it had the paint codes of what the paint code was for that Mera.
Interesting.
So if you every time I see a Mera that's for sale, the first thing I ask for is, can you give me a picture of the tag on the underside of the trunk, and that'll tell you what Mera it is, and you can kind of, because of the VIN, you can kind of tell when it was made. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's another thing to tell for sure. If it doesn't have that tag, it probably isn't a Mera, because you don't get those.
If somebody wants more information as far as how many left are out there, how many are still original in operating condition, is there a registry that somebody can look at?
Yeah, again, it's not really complete, but if you go on Penix again, and there's that one that's called a Mera, or Mera in Paradise, but there's also someone else started a thread called Mera Registry, and has all the numbers of the Meras listed, and then people have been going on that and adding their cars onto it, and they'll add the person's name, the year, the VIN number, and the color and all that. And there's not a lot of information on how many are left, that registry is very sparse. And if you're listening to this and you have a Mera, go on and put your Mera number in there and tell us about your car, or tell them about your car, because we'd like to see how many are out there. I mean, just like Fieros, you want to know how many. We always get that question: how many Fieros are still out there? Well, I guess there are ways you could find out, but you can't really tell for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Well,
so many
we know Rodney's got. He's got, what year was his again?
I believe his is an 88.
And then there was one at the 40th, or there was a couple at the 40th. There was a black one, and there was that was a deep dark gray metallic silver gray, somewhere like that. He was parked inside.
Yeah, that was the first one. That was the Mera 6001. Yeah, I've been in communication with him. He's chock full of information. I like talking to him. That is the one that is in all the ads. That's the one that was at all of the auto shows. And it's a gentleman, he just bought it a few years ago.
That would be an interesting conversation if we can get him on. It'd be an interesting conversation to kind of pull that information and history from that car.
No, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And now, from what I understand, he's talked to a lot of the people that have a lot more information than I do, and has gone into some of this information. And it's interesting talking to him. It's amazing. I was always going, really, as I'm talking to him, because I'm like, wow, cool. You don't realize what, a car of this nature, what had to be done and what was put into it.
So I'm going to go out and say that will be Mirror Chat Part 2.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a challenge. And if you can contact him and ask him if he would like to partake in FieroCast of the Mera Part 2.
Yeah. I mean, he's very enthusiastic. When I first contacted, I had gotten his card at the 35th show, and because I had talked to him, I saw him when he pulled in. I think it was on Thursday night, and I talked to him and told him, what a fanatic I am, and I'd love to pick his brain. And it took me a couple of years to call him or email him, and I emailed him and said, this is Mark. I met you. I had this. And I didn't know how he's going to take it. Like, oh my God, it's another one of these guys. And it's like, oh, great, Mark. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about it. I'm like, all right. So yeah, he's a really nice guy, and he knows a lot about that car and a lot about the Mera. So yeah, I'll take up that challenge and see if he wants to do something like that.
Perfect. Well, any final thoughts on the Mera that you have?
Just that it's not a kit car. It's a conversion, and it was a factory authorized conversion. Well, it wasn't. Let me put that. It wasn't endorsed by GM, but it was you could order it from GM or through Pontiac. And it's a unique vehicle. Again, it's not a kit car. It's almost, a dirty word. It was a conversion. It was a conversion. And if you can find one in decent shape, you're going to pay a few bucks for it. But if it is in good shape and it has low miles and you have the opportunity to buy one, buy one. I haven't had the opportunity, the funds to come up with one yet, and I've been following them for about 10 or 11 years, and that's my dream, is to own one, and eventually I will. But I'm just absolutely intrigued by them.
Well, very cool. Thank you for kind of filling us in on what the Mera was, is, and became. Yeah, I mean, again, I think we could do a part 2 on this and get that gentleman on and kind of dive into more of those unanswered questions that we have, and also learn about that prototype 601 and how it came about that he got it, and everything, to where what that car was all about as the promotion car and stuff like that. So that's an interesting story as well.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that we welcome Meras into the Fiero family. I think sometimes they think that they kind of get shrugged off by the Fiero community because they're not particular. I mean, because they don't look like Fieros. But I've always completely welcomed them into the Fiero community, and they got a lot of response when two or three that were there at the 35th. So, hey, if you own a mirror and you own one, bring it out, bring it to our shows. You know, I
Exactly.
want to see.
Fiorama, the
Yeah,
Dells, the
yeah,
40th. We've got
yeah.
a
I
lot of
mean,
good shows coming up in the next couple of years.
even Fiorama, we've talked about. If we get 3 or 4 of them to come, we'll have our own mirror section. You know,
Yeah.
so come on out, guys.
All right. Well, thank you. It was enjoyable to get more in-depth information on the Mera, and we look forward to expanding that information if we can in another Fiero cast. So, again, Mark, thank you very much, and
Thank you, Mike.
look forward to chatting in the future on it.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Well, there you have it. The Zimmer Quicksilver and the Mera. So we'd be interested to see what you guys think, and if you like to own one or see one in person, I know there's one locally, both Mera and Quicksilver in the Chicago area. So maybe we can get them out to Fiorama one year. But again, thank you for joining me tonight, Mark Soldner. It was a pleasure. I am your host, Mike Croyer, and this has been a production of the Northern Illinois Fiero Enthusiasts. Thank you for listening to the newest episode of FieroCast. This is episode number 22, and it is the only podcast dedicated to the Pontiac Fiero. If you'd like more information or have any ideas on future casts, you can email me at mkroyer@fierofocus.com. Remember to keep Fieroing, and good night, Fiero owners, wherever you are.